Welcome to the webinar, which is Zero Trust Data Collaboration for Remote Workers, which is being hosted by the Edge Computing Association. It's great. We're just celebrating just over a year of being around. We're delighted that we've managed to get an audience of about 200,000 subscribers who have been following the news and opinions and events that we've been doing pretty solidly for the last year. And just wanted those people that are following, the next 4 to 6 weeks are going to be pretty busy. You're going to start to see some new things come up on in our emails and on the site. So it's pretty exciting. Just to introduce ourselves, our guest today is Tom Ward, who's the VP Marketing for QNext. He's also an advisor to the Edge Computing Association, but Tom's a 30-year veteran and was a founding employee of ATI Technologies and has, experience in large multinational companies like NEC and Celestica, as well as, the entrepreneurial small startups such as MGI Software, which was sold successfully, and now QNext. Tom has an MBA from the Schulich School of Business at York University. I'm Phil Bliss. I'm the founder of the Edge Computing Association. I call myself a digital marketing pioneer. That's probably because I'm a bit of an old guy, and definitely a technology entrepreneur and a marketing guy. And I've been at the forefront of digital media development for the past 20 years. I was there at the beginning as a strategic advisor to companies like Cisco and Microsoft and Apple, as well as working with quite a number of technology startups. So today we're going to focus really on how the edge computing framework is becoming much more common as organizations are pushing data processing functions closer to the edge of their networks. And it's probably going to get even faster over the next 2 years, basically. But shifting so many key tasks to the edge of the network does create a number of challenges for enterprises. But one of the most critical has to do with security. End-to-end encryption has been around for a while, and it does facilitate the type of encrypted communication that only the sender and receiver can read or see. And we're seeing the very fast growth of a zero trust policy or security architecture for edge applications that allows them to grow along with the edge network. So it's pretty cool on that level. When you combine these cutting edge techniques, you can deliver precisely the infrastructure governments, institutions, and enterprises need to safeguard their information data along the edge. And as we're all experiencing with the arrival of pandemic contingency planning, and with COVID-19, we're seeing just an incredible escalation of remote working. So of course, security is now more than ever more vital. And I think we also all know that this escalation of remote working that's been brought on by the pandemic is not going to go away. So really the priority is very high. So today's webinar about FileFlex looks at one example of how to manage this accelerated change in the workforce and how to share data without endangering corporate security. So Tom, I'm going to hand over to you if you would like to kind of take it from here. Just one thing before Tom comes. You can submit questions, and please do. We're not going to answer them live, but we will certainly be sending out an email to everyone with the questions that were submitted and the answers. So feel free to ask as many questions as you want. But in the I don't know about everyone else. We're finding time is tough online, so we'll get on with it, Tom.
Phil, thanks. You have to stop sharing your screen. It's not letting me take over.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that.
There we go. No problem. Let me just share here now. Okay, you can see my agenda screen?
Yes, loud and clear.
Okay, wonderful. Well, when you go into webinars and you're working from home, the big question for me has been, the big decision was, do I give in and allow my wife to cut my hair before the webinar or after the webinar, because you can see it's getting kind of shaggy. I haven't had my hair cut in a couple months now. So as you can see, I chose the latter. I wasn't going to come in with crooked hair. I thought I will come in with kind of shaggy hair instead. But joking aside here, what I want to do is talk about how you can equip your workforce properly to work from home securely without compromises. And especially given our current situation with the pandemic and contingency planning. And I'm going to talk to you about this in terms of 4 different inflections that we see going on right now. And the first one is the rise of the distributed workforce. You know, we've seen the workforce changing from a remote workforce of employees who work remotely to including contract workers and gig-based workers, and that's really the norm today. And we want to give them the tools to be able to work productively without sacrificing security and confidentiality. So that's very paramount today. The second is the emergence of hybrid IT. Organizations now, today in the modern organizations use a combination of on-premises infrastructure as well as cloud-hosted infrastructure. That's what hybrid IT is. And that produces different problems and siloing of information, and it produces problems for your traditional perimeter-based security, which brings us, those first 2 issues have been expanding the perimeter. And so that brings up the movement towards zero trust to address how security has been, the security needs of the modern workforce today, the modern organization that uses hybrid IT, that has a distributed workforce. And I'll get into what zero trust is and how we implement those policies. And then also related to the movement to a distributed workforce and the movement towards hybrid IT brings in the whole importance of data governance for the modern organization, since a lot of times you're sharing now governance with other people. And you know, there's been a lot of regulations coming out from governments such as HIPAA, GDPR, so that try and force organizations to make sure they are governing their information properly and they're not just handing it over to someone else. So having said that, let me go on to the first slide or second slide. And first I'm going to talk about the rise of the distributed workforce. So what is a distributed workforce? It is the virtualized workforce of remote employees that you've always had, but adding into that contractors and gig-based workers. And those workers can be located anywhere in the world. Like, for example, you might be doing, for example, some website development, and the SEO work's being done by a contract worker out of India or out of Vietnam or someplace like that, okay? So your workforce is expanding, you're tapping into that global talent pool and lower price geographies in a lot of cases. And organizations are doing that today. And so we also, 70% of the workforce today is now working remotely at least once a week. That was before the pandemic planning. Okay, now probably it's 100%. We've seen that you get about a 13% productivity increase when you allow that full-time telecommuting, okay? And the typical organization saves about $11,000 per person per year. The productivity comes because when you work from home, you can put in more hours. You're basically always on call to work, and you're not traveling. The commuting time, and now is a lot of it's being converted into work time, and you don't have as many distractions and things like that. So that's how you see the savings. That's why you see the productivity increase. And that's all been enabled by the technology inflections that we've gone through: the smartphone, the tablets, VPN, software as a service, cloud storage, remote desktop technologies, email, all of those technologies. And now with the arrival of pandemic contingency planning and COVID-19, that remote workforce and the evolution of that's accelerating, and it's paramount. It's a priority for all the IT departments of every organization around the world to be enabling those tools securely without compromises. The problem is that when you move to a distributed workforce, it does introduce compromises, and it introduces significant issues of privacy and security. For example, you're not going to give a gig-based worker a VPN access, because you're giving them access to the entire network infrastructure. Now, obviously you put some controls around that, whatnot, but for every gig-based worker, for every little project, you're not going to give them VPN access. And so, and if you're sharing files with them, you're going to use a third-party cloud provider, and that's introducing compromises to privacy and confidentiality of those files, because When you give it to your files to a third party, that third party has a legal access, rights to legal access to those files. Governments have legal access to those files. Foreign governments, even in some cases. So, there's obviously some types of judicial oversight, but the reality is that they have access. Third parties have access and whatnot. It's all done in secret. You don't know about it. So a lot of companies, a lot of organizations, they do not allow their files to be stored on third-party sites, such as banking and financial institutions, insurance companies. And so they really can't use those tools today. And some have professional standards that recommend you don't do it. So those are compromises that you have that we've accepted because we want the productivity benefits to our distributed workforce. The other productivity benefit the other impact that we've seen has been the fact that now you have to upload files, you have to download files, you have to manage your storage space with the cloud provider. You might be running out of space. So you buy more space, you get cost creep. You're constantly swapping files back and forth. Like for example, if you're collaborating on an AutoCAD file, that file could be a gigabyte and you want to just make a small change. Well, you've got to download it to your computer, make the little change, upload it back. And when it's uploading, it could take a while. So your employee goes off and he goes for a coffee or he starts talking to someone else while it's uploading. So you lose productivity there. And you might be in the same office, in the same cubicle, right beside somebody. So you have to, if you want to make a change and you're collaborating on that over the cloud, you have to download it, make your changes, upload it, even though you're in the cubicle right beside them. That all takes time. It all impacts productivity. So that's related to the big files. It has problems for big files because they take time to upload and download, even for small changes. Versus if you're on the network, it doesn't take any time at all, right? But if you're over the cloud, it takes time. So having said that, putting that in the context of your distributed workforce, I want to just give you a very fast overview to FileFlex Enterprise and then talk about that in context of the other inflections that are coming. So what is FileFlex Enterprise? It is the industry's first remote access sharing and collaboration platform for hybrid IT, which means we support on-premises storage and your cloud-hosted storage for remote access and sharing and collaboration. Essentially what we do is we give that cloud functionality of remote access, sharing, and collaboration to your own storage. And we turn everything into a virtual private cloud, everything in the company. So whether it be your on-premises, your SharePoint, or your cloud hosted storage infrastructure as a service storage, such as Amazon S3, your Azure, your cloud store, your Google Cloud, you could be your EFSS cloud providers, etc. Okay, so we support that hybrid IT infrastructure. We're the only ones who do it. We bring it all under a single pane of glass, and it's all integrated together with your on-premises storage. And we bring into that a zero trust policy engine for the security and securing the access to that storage. We're the only ones who do that we're aware of. We do it through a decentralized edge computing architecture, which means that we leverage the storage and the computing power of the edge devices. We don't put things on a central server. And we bring IT control back over file sharing because now it's all controlled by your own organization on your own infrastructure services if you want it to be. One feature I will highlight out on this, besides the remote access sharing and collaboration, is that we do allow your users to create virtual data rooms, which means basically it's a folder that allows upload rights, and that could be colleagues, it could be external parties, suppliers, vendors. They can upload files into that data room in a confidential manner. That data room could be anywhere on the infrastructure. It could be on your own NAS or your own server. It could be in your infrastructure services if you want it to be your. And you can have as many data rooms, or a user can have as many data rooms as they want. A user can have as many external parties connecting to that data room as they want. There's no additional fees. It's included in the low user fee that you already have. The user has complete control over who has access to that data room, what access rights they have. And it could be view only. It could be view and download rights. It could be editing rights. It could have a calendar expiry on that data room if you want, and it can be controlled by user basis. So that's a great additional feature. Now, hybrid IT, what is it? I'm going to talk about it. I'm using that term. It's a relatively new term. When we say hybrid IT, we mean a combination of on-premises storage, such as your server storage, server-attached storage, your network attached storage, maybe your SharePoint if you've got an on-premises implementation of SharePoint, a private cloud if you've already built one, your personal computers, all of your network storage, your on-premises storage is a hybrid IT, because now you're combining in, or modern organizations are bringing in infrastructure as a service, okay? Your cloud hosted storage. And the reason they do that is because there's been a lot of pressure on them. There's been understaffing of the IT department. There's been reductions in force. And so it's very easy to spin up, for example, a new VM in an Amazon environment. You know, it just takes you a couple minutes. Whereas if you have to do it yourself, you got to go into your server room and install a new server, connect the cables, put on your operating system, do all of your security around it. It takes a while, right? And so there's a cost involved, versus you need another one on infrastructure. It just takes a couple minutes and up you go, you've got a new server up and running. The 90% of companies are using infrastructure services today, cloud hosted services. 60% of your workloads are now on a cloud hosted service. So it's a big trend. And it's great for IT. They got great tools for IT. It makes it very easy for IT, but they have very poor tools for the end users. How do end users get in there? You know, you basically have to create a virtual private cloud to access that storage. And you get a siloing of information. So what FileFlex does is brings that all together in a single pane of glass, all from one dashboard. It's all integrated together. You can access, share, collaborate that storage no matter where it is, whether it's on your own infrastructure or on third-party infrastructure. You can move it around. It's got great file management capabilities. So if I want to say migrate, I don't want to use Amazon anymore, I want to move everything to Azure, you simply cut and paste it over and it moves it. The server will move it over. It doesn't matter how big it is. It could be gigabytes of information. It'll just move it for you. You don't have to use their tools to migrate. It's all done through the file management. If you want to move it from your own PC over there, it's just quite simple. It's just cutting and pasting, moving it around. Great tools for end users. Now, given that we're moving towards the distributed workforce, we're moving towards hybrid IT, the network architecture itself has been changing, right? So more and more services are moving to the cloud, storage is moving to the cloud, you're getting more software as a service, users are embracing more flexible working on multiple devices from a variety of locations. So the network perimeter has been disappearing. Where is it? Who's controlling it? And with that has been the traditional value of your traditional defenses, okay? So in a zero trust architecture, that inherent trust is removed from the network. And just because you're connected to the network doesn't mean that you should be able to access everything that's on the network. So that's what happens in a breach, for example. An adversary does a phishing attack. It convinces one of your users to give up tricks them into giving up their credentials, and then the adversary gets the credentials as a user, logs into your network, and now they're inside the network, and they move laterally throughout your organizations, find the real devices of value. And it may not be the user itself, that's just a vehicle to get in. And then they they find your servers, they put ransomware on your servers, and they find every server in the company eventually. And then one day you wake up and all your servers are locked down and you can't get access to your own storage or your own infrastructure even until you pay up, right? So that's your traditional based security. It's using antivirus software, it's using port and firewall lockdown, it's using passwords, it's using VPNs. Users inside the perimeter are trusted, but in a zero trust architecture, it's recognizing the modern world today, using VPNs, it's using software as a service, using cloud services, it's using distributed workforces, okay? And it's recognizing that, and so always authenticates every transaction all the time in a never trust, always verify model. And everything is secured through a zero trust policy engine. So that eliminates unauthorized access to data and services, and it makes it as granular as possible, even down to the file level, okay? And so as a result of that, 60% of companies today, according to Gartner, are gonna start phasing out remote access through a VPN in favor of a zero trust architecture model, a zero trust policy engines, okay? And, obviously it's not going to do away with VPNs, you need them, but you don't necessarily need them for remote access for the average everyday employee, okay? Because a VPN trusts blindly. Once a user device is authenticated, they gain access to everything on the network. There might still be passwords around them, but they have access, and it takes a lot of work to control them. The adversaries are always attacking the VPN. There's always trying to exploit them because that's the way in. So you have to constantly keep them up to date and patched and maintained, and you have to keep your policies up to date. What FileFlex does is it abstracts the information from the infrastructure, and it makes access as granular as a single file. Okay, so access is granted only when the data is required, after authentication is performed, and before the connection is even established. Okay, so a competitive solution, they would either replicate information to another server to which a user has access. They don't have access to the infrastructure, but they have access to that third-party server. Or they give direct access to the infrastructure, like a VPN or like remote desktop software does, okay? So FileFlex Enterprise abstracts that information from the data. Think of it like a bank teller. When you go to the bank and you want money, you can't just go into the vault and get the money yourself. Well, that's how our modern infrastructure is. You're allowed to, once you're in behind the perimeter, you're inside and you have access. With a bank, you go to the teller, and the first thing that the bank teller does is it verifies who you are. Who are you? The person that you say you are. They go through your ID and your identification. Then they go into your bank account and say, do you have enough money? And then if you have enough money and you're who you are, they say, are you allowed to withdraw it? Are you over your withdrawal limits? Are you within your policies? So that's what a zero trust policy engine does. It verifies who you are, it verifies the user, verifies the devices, it verifies the policies, and then it gets the files for you and it comes and brings them to you. Okay, just like a bank teller gets the money from the vault and brings it to you. That's how a zero trust policy engine works. And it does this all the time for every transaction, every request, through a secure anonymous token exchange. That's how we do it. We do it through a point-to-point connections and encryption. And it happens almost instantly behind the scenes. Makes it very easy for the user. So we have a number of zero trust policies, or processes, I should say, that we use to do that. We have processes for user authentication, secure data transmission, accessing information, protecting the credentials, the use of anonymous tokens, request management, permission management. We've bundled that all around, make it work together with a security set of and we integrate that into what you're already doing, your two-factor authentication, your multi-factor authentication, maybe your UB keys and things like that, your virus scanners, your single sign-on, your Active Directory, your LDAP permissions. We do use AES 256 encrypted hybrid point-to-point communications, and a very robust security set that you would expect, integrated with the secure processes, the zero trust processes, and a zero trust policy engine to secure access to the data for all remote users in that hybrid IT infrastructure that I described earlier. We combine that with the edge computing architecture, so we don't use a third party or a centralized server to store information. It's stored on the edge devices, and that protects you against exfiltration from third parties. And it's a patented secure technology that we took years to develop, that involves a server, a PKI server, a connector agents, the client app, that all work together to secure the user data. We also have a technology agreement with Intel. It's a source code level agreement, allows us to take advantage of the Intel SGX enclaves. This is an optional security layer that you can lay on top of it so that you can secure the hardware keys, the encryption keys, right through they're generated right inside the SGX enclaves of the CPUs. And we're working with Intel right now on their next big project with Silver Lake, which is their next generation of server chips. So here's what they say. They say software is no longer enough to combat today's cyber threats. Hardware enhanced solution based on Intel architecture is the way forward. Now with their SGX technology, Silver Lake and FileFlex Enterprise, organizations can have a secure remote access sharing collaboration solution that's silicon to silicon, hardware secured, from source location of all files. Okay, that's the critical piece, missing piece of a solution to the more secure enterprise. Now I want to talk about data governance, because that's the next piece of the puzzle that's missing right now. And we've seen a rise of the privacy regulations, professional standards. A lot of industries don't allow you to use third parties, because you're sharing data governance with third parties. So the first thing you want to do if you want to bring data governance back to IT is you have to integrate your solution, which we do, with the existing tools, such as single sign-on, your two-factor authentication, your device authentication, your password policies, your fingerprint policies, your Active Directory, your LDAP, things like that. And we want to integrate that with what you have. So we have a plug-and-play solution that already integrates into what you're already doing. Okay, so it's part of that part of that solution that you've already put together. We bring that in with user management, so the IT department can add and delete users. They set the permissions, they manage the access control list, they add the storage repositories and manage those. So all comes with storage management capabilities that they have. So they can assign storage to a user. The users don't get access to everything. They get only access to what IT allows them. They can assign the storage on a device level, only certain devices of certain users, drive levels, folder levels, even file level granularity, okay? They can set the sharing permissions. They have management over sharing permissions. So they could say, for example, maybe you're a hospital and you've got some healthcare information, or you're a financial institution, you've got client information that has confidential information. You can say, it's all in this folder, and that folder cannot be shared with anyone. You can have remote access to it, you can look at it, but you cannot share it, okay? So you keep control over it. Or you can say, you can share it, but that sharing can be view only. Nobody's allowed to download it. Maybe you can allow a hard copy if you want, or not. Or you can say, no, you can't. You can share it only in view only mode. Or you can say, no, this is perfectly okay. You can share it, you can download it. Your recipients can download it. They can even edit it and put it back if they want to, okay? So IT has control over that. Users also have same control. They can control how they share, but IT can bring sharing over the storage repositories as well, the permissions over the repositories. And so IT can also determine who can share outside the company, who can't share outside the company, who can add their own storage options, and who they can share it with, okay? And that's all integrated in with your incident management software. We have an activity log, logs the activities by user, by date, or you can access it by date and sort it by date, by user, by download. It's all integrated, can be integrated into your incident management software, or can be exported and then imported into your incident management software. It's up to you, or exported just simply to a spreadsheet for any kind of forensic analysis you have to do if you have a situation you need to do an investigation. So, but you have control over that. It's a software only solution applied to existing storage. So it's a very low total cost of ownership. So, you know, you don't have to, it runs from a VM. It's very, very light. You can even run it from a NAS. You don't have to buy a new server to bring this in. You don't have to buy any new storage. You can it runs off your existing storage. Okay, so there's no new storage, no new hardware required. It's very simple and easy to run. You don't really have, in most cases, you don't have to hire anybody to administer it, run it. Once you've got it set up and running, it requires very little maintenance or update. It's very easy to deploy, very easy to manage. It's easy to scale it to thousands of users very cost efficiently. We don't have, like I said before, we don't have to build a third-party data center that's very expensive to build and maintain and operate. So it's a very low monthly fee per user. It's unlimited in terms of how often you access it or how much storage you can access. So you don't get any cost creep, because under other solutions, you know, you buy so much storage, and then as you start to run out of storage, you got to buy more and you get cost creep. Or you pay more for, and as you get more storage, you got to pay more. Ours is one low fee because you're leveraging your own storage and you're running off your own storage. So having said all that, I want to say thank you. That's it. If you have more information, I do want to mention here that we are technology partners, as I said, with Intel. We're a Microsoft development partner, a silver level development partner, and an HPE development technology partner. So having said that, we do want to be in touch with you. We do want to, if you had any questions, they went into the chat, we will answer them separately to you by email. And we will get in contact with us if you're interested in, I think next steps, if you are interested in looking at this in more detail, it would be to get a proper demo of the product and maybe a free trial even. So we would offer you a free trial for a limited number of users, and you could try it out and see it for yourself. You'll find out it's fantastic. It's very easy to use, very easy to deploy, and very light on your resources. And much better solution for your distributed workforce and your hybrid IT with that zero trust policy engine that we have. So with that, Phil, I'll hand it back to you.
Thank you, Tom. It was a really interesting presentation, and thanks everyone for turning up. I think it's certainly useful and a great piece of edge technology. Look forward to seeing you all again at the next event. Okay, thank you. Bye bye.
Thanks. Bye.